Mortgage interest rates for a purchase home loan reached 5.125% on average last week, which is a whopping over 2% increase compared to exactly a year ago. We were at 2.98% according to the latest survey by Freddie Mac. The total of refinances has dropped the overall mortgage volume by 71%. The other 29% of people still refinancing are those that are taking advantage of taking out equity on their properties and consolidating their debt that currently has a substantially higher interest rate than what mortgage market is offering right now. Some mortgage companies, in anticipation of these rate hikes, have already been laying off people starting third and fourth quarter of last year, and now they are just continuing with it. In other news, the show was stolen by the Fed. Their two-day meeting adjourned on Wednesday, and as most of you have probably already heard, the Fed has increased the Fed fund rate by 0.5%, following a 0.25% increase back in March. The Fed's stance on their balance sheet and how they're going to be reducing the balance sheet was also a very important part of the news after the meeting. Why? Because the Fed is walking a very, very tight rope here. For one, increasing the Fed fund rate is helping mortgage rates because it is taming inflation. However, easing off on buying back mortgage-backed securities, so reducing their balance sheet, never is. So this fine line and very tight rope will be watched carefully by all of us here, market participants, to know where rates are headed. Some economists, Salma Happ to be exact, says that she does not see mortgage interest rates jumping any higher than 6% by the end of 2022. And she believes that the increases in rates are going to slow down a bit. Let's keep our fingers crossed. The other news, obviously, was the unemployment report. The unemployment rate stands still at 3.6% as the previous month. There was a hefty 428,000 jobs created in all of the industries, manufacturing and transportation stealing the show. No, mortgage companies were not adding to their payrolls, unfortunately. Just connecting with the previous news just shared. However, in the private sector, in ADP report, it showed only 247,000 new jobs created in the private sector versus 400,000 that were anticipated. And the big news here is, remember when I told you that when unemployment dips all the way down and starts upticking is when an indication of recession is coming? Well, maybe we are just there. Maybe this slight uptick or downtick in employment and job creation is to be watched very carefully. The other news that typically don't make it big to the headlines is the U6 rate, unemployment rate all in all. So people that are not at all looking for jobs, so they're not counting in this in the unemployment rate, but they're not working and they're in a working age. And that shows us a little closer and a little better of a figure, uptick from 6.9 to 7%. So when anybody asks you what really unemployment rate is, I would be quoting that 7% than the 3.6% rate, because the 3.6 doesn't paint the entire picture. In other indicators of a recession to be coming, we need to be watchful of new construction and housing starts, because typically headed into a recession, new construction sales and housing starts, so beginning of constructing of properties, dips down. So first and foremost, the crossover of the yield on the 2-year versus the 10-year bond. Second off, a slow uptick in unemployment rate. And third off, looking at new construction sales. Will all three be indicators of how soon and how fast we're actually headed into a recession. Until then, over and out. Beata Bukowski.